Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Qualisha Griffin, and I'm here today because I want people to understand that this tax plan is a huge burden for people like me. My husband and I live in Rosedale with 3 beautiful children. Our oldest son is now attending college. I work for a telecommunication company, and my husband drives the bus for the MTA. I love our life and our family, but we live close to the margin. If this tax plan passes, our lives will get more difficult. Under the current proposal, our taxes could go up by $2,500. That might not seem like a lot to some people, but it's a big deal to us. In our budget, every little bit counts. Let me tell you a little bit about what this tax increase would mean to our family. For us, $2,500 is an entire mortgage payment. An entire month's payment, we would have to find a way somewhere else. At least $200 a month going, and that $200 loss would hit us hard. Every year, I save a little each month for Christmas Club. If this tax plan succeeds, our Christmas Club could disappear. Our kids will likely have to cut back on after-school activities like sports that help keep them happy and healthy because we won't be able to afford them any longer. And our family nights, which we budget carefully to afford once or twice a month, would disappear. This isn't fair. Big corporations who don't pay their fair share will get a $1 trillion tax cut, while families like mine will pay more. Republicans in Washington are paying for these tax plans on the backs of families like mine. The tax policy might seem like a boring issue. It used to be like that to me. Now when I look at newspaper articles on tax policy, I see the Christmas gifts my children won't receive. I wonder where I will live if I can't afford my mortgage payment. The basketball games my daughter will not be able to play in. The student loan debt that will be even harder for my son to repay. Today isn't just about the tax policy. It's about hardworking families like me and my husband. We are going to fight. And I know the man that I'm going to introduce is going to fight with us. I'm honored to introduce Mayor de Blasio.
Great job. Now, everyone, you know, before she came up here, Qualisha was a little shy, but I think she did an amazing job. Let's give her a round of applause. This rally is to help shed light on what's really going on with this Trump tax plan. What's really going on is that it's going to rip off the middle class. That's right. This is not a plan that was built for the middle class. That would look entirely different. This is a plan that for so many middle class families and working class families is going to hurt them. Listen to what Qualisha said, $2,500 she would lose. A hard-working New York family. Working class people, backbone of this city. One family, this plan would take away from them $2,500 a year. So we're all here united to start getting the truth out about this plan and what it means. The fact is, hardworking people have been struggling for a long time, for decades, struggling to get ahead and never feeling like they were. This tax plan will actually set a lot of them back. And it's going to particularly hurt the great cities of our nation. This tax plan hurts New York City to the core. And when you mess with New York City fights back. Right, everyone? Yeah. There is some very good news to this picture, which is we have extraordinary leadership coming from this city and this state in Washington fighting this fight. And you're going to hear from Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand in just a moment and the members of our congressional delegation. We could not be more blessed than to have them representing us because they know how to fight and they're ready to fight. And I know everyone back here, all the elected officials are here, from the state level and from the city council. I want to thank all of them, all the unions who are represented here. Particular thank you to the president of the RWDSU, Stuart Applebaum, who's with us. Thank you, Stuart, for all your leadership. All of the community leaders and organizations, everyone's united. This is going to be the big story. This tax plan is going to be the thing that everyone focuses on because nothing could have a bigger impact on us. A lot of things are working in New York City right now. Nothing is more of a danger to us than the Trump tax plan. And that's true all over the country. This plan could derail a lot of what does work in the American economy and could set back tens of millions of Americans. So the funny part of this is when you listen to the president, you listen to Republican leadership, they actually think people are going to fall for the notion that the plan was meant to help working people. It's simply a giveaway to the wealthy and the big corporations. It's clear as a bell. And I got to tell you, it's particularly insulting to New York City that New York City would be one of the places that will get hurt the most. This plan takes dead aim at New York City. The place the president comes from is one of the places that get hurt the most. 700,000 plus New Yorkers would experience double taxation. They'd lose their state and local tax deductibility. They'd be hit with higher taxes than ever. That's why you even see a number of the Republican House members standing up and saying this is not fair. 700,000 New Yorkers would be taxed more. And most of those folks make less than $75,000 a year. They're working class and middle class people. Exactly. And you heard Qualisha, $2,500 in her case, she'd have to pay more in taxes. Some families would have to pay up to $5,000 more in taxes. So what's really going on in this tax plan is the equivalent of asking New Yorkers and Americans to take money out of their pocket and hand it over to millionaires and billionaires and big corporations. That's what's really happening here. And look at all the people in the Trump administration who wrote the plan and are promoting the plan. They happen to be millionaires and billionaires. It's not even hard to trace. $1.5 trillion we would lose from the things that we need, and that money going to those who are already doing so well. And by the way, I kind of have to admire the honesty of some folks in the White House. One of the president's economic advisors the other day said, you know, there's one group of people that absolutely love this plan. It's the CEOs of America. Couldn't have been blunter about it. So the question is, can it be stopped? You're going to hear from the folks who have the best vantage point and are at the front line fighting the fight. But I just want to say one thing about can it be stopped. Do you remember we were told so many times the Affordable Care Act was dead and gone after the election? Remember that? Yeah. Remember all the times they told us it was impossible to save it? Yes. But we all saved it, didn't we? Yeah. The grassroots is where the decision ultimately gets made. And the people are going to fight this. Are you all ready to fight this tax plan? Yeah. Let me just ask that one more time. Are you ready to fight this tax plan? We're going to fight it because our family's future depends on it. It's as simple as that. We're going to fight for our lives. We're going to stop this tax plan. I just want to say a couple of words in Spanish. El plan del presidente Trump es un desastre para los trabajadores neoyorquinos. Con este plan, más de 700,000 familias pagarían más impuestos cada año. Vamos a luchar contra este plan y proteger todo lo que hemos hecho por una ciudad más justa y asequible para todos. With that, I want to bring forward some of the people who are fighting this fight, and they're doing an extraordinary job. First, she played a crucial role in organizing this rally, and she's a fighter if ever there was one, and I'm proud to say she's a Brooklynite as well. Congress member Nydia Velazquez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Bill de Blasio, for everything you do in putting forward progressive values and fighting for those values, for values of the middle class and working families in New York City and New York State. And I want to thank all the members of the New York congressional delegation and our 2 senators for being here. They are in Washington day in and day out to really explain to the American people that this is morally wrong, that this will explode the deficit just to give a huge tax cut to the wealthiest families in this country. So this bill takes a wrecking ball to our middle class. It is an outright assault on working families here in New York City and around the nation. And it does all of this to finance $1.5 trillion. Yes, with a T, trillion dollars. Make no mistake, the Republican budget that they passed was to make sure that it was designed to enable this giveaway to the wealthiest 1% in this country. So we are not going to let Republicans in Congress to ransack Medicare and Medicaid. The tax scam gives $1.5 trillion to the wealthy. They take $1 trillion out of Medicaid and $500 billion from Medicare. It is cruel. It is heartless. It's outrageous, and we got to fight back. This tax scam erases deduction to ordinary people in this country. Are you a student or recent graduate who writes off interest on your student loan? Well, this bill means you pay more in taxes. 800,000 students will lose this deduction in New York State. Do you own or are you planning to buy a home? Guess what? Under the GOP tax scam, you can kiss that deduction goodbye. Here is the one I really love. If you are a teacher, you pay out of pocket for pencils, pens, and paper. Well, you can no longer deduct those expenses. Here in New York State, there are 290,000 teachers who use this deduction. So this week, our Republican colleagues are going to try and pass this monstrosity. I have a feeling for many of them, this is going to be a tough vote. And by the way, this tax scam is splitting the Republicans in Washington. We need more than ever the kind of activism that saved the Affordable Care Act. It is your power, your power. So, to the Republicans in Washington and to the Republicans in upstate New York or Long Island or Staten Island, Americans are watching, New Yorkers are watching, and we will make sure that they will not forget. Thank you. Para los neoyorquinos de la ciudad de Nueva York y del estado de Nueva York, este tax bill es un asalto en las clases trabajadoras y la clase media de este país. Vamos a estar aquí, toda la delegación del Congreso de Nueva York, con nuestros dos senadores, Schumer y Gillibrand. Vamos a estar peleando en contra de esto. Y obviamente le agradecemos al alcalde Bill de Blasio que esté aquí con nosotros, porque esto es un asalto a la clase trabajadora y no podemos aceptar que pase. Los únicos que pueden lograr que esto no eche hacia adelante es el activismo de la clase trabajadora en este país. Now, it is my great honor to introduce one of the outstanding members of the U.S. Senate, a great leader, our Democratic leader, Senator Chuck Schumer. And I'm happy that he comes from Brooklyn. Thank you.
Right off the bike.
Thank you.
Right off the bike.
Excuse my dress. I ride my bike Saturday or Sunday morning. We had a family memorial service Saturday, so I did it today. But I wanted to be here.
Amen. Amen.
and saw a lot of parts of our beautiful city. Now, let me say a couple of things here. This press conference is much more important than you might think. You say, well, it's New York City, it's mostly Democrats. We know they're on our side. Every Democrat in the House, to their everlasting credit, voted no on the budget bill. And I'm confident they will vote no on the tax bill. But right here in New York and New Jersey determines whether this bill passes or it fails. Because the 9 Republican congressmen from New York and the 6 Republican congressmen from New Jersey have our state's fate in their hands. We want to, because if state and local is in this bill, it's a dagger to the heart of New York, it's a dagger to the heart of New Jersey. And those 15, have to choose their states over the rich special interests who are trying to push them around so they can get a tax break. I want to give credit where credit is due. This is not a partisan issue. It will be if all the Republicans do what they do, but right now it isn't. I want to give Peter King a shout out. He's been strong and resolute. I want to give Dan Donovan a shout out. He's been strong and resolute. I want to give even Lee Zeldin a shout out. He too has come out against this bill, as has Leonard Lance in New Jersey. But I am going to call out the names of the others. And you TV stations, please send it to your upstate affiliates. Where is Congressman Faso? Where is Congresswoman Stefanik? Where is Congresswoman Tenney? Where is Congressman Katchko? Where is Congressman Collins? Where is Congressman Reed? And the New Jersey ones, all of whose names I can't remember. Where is the New Jersey delegation? Except for Lance. And I want to say one other thing. So now they're feeling the heat. And they've tried to come up with a compromise. The compromise says you can deduct some, not all of your property taxes, but still none of your income tax, none of your sales tax. That still takes away 3/4 of this deduction from Americans, middle class, working class Americans. You know what they're saying with this compromise? We're doing you a favor. No deal. We're not going to. It's a good line, folks. They say they're doing us a favor. They say instead of chopping off 5 of your fingers, we're going to chop off 4. Isn't that nice of us? Well, no, it isn't. And so this compromise won't work. And besides, they're being set up because the Senate bill doesn't have any compromise. And they're going to send it back with no compromise. And those people will have aided and abetted real economic hardship for their states, for middle class and working class people in their states. So this is very important. It hurts our city. It hurts our state. Now, back in 1986, Democrats actually tried to do the same thing. Congressman Gephardt and Senator Bradley, in their bill, said get rid of state and local deductibility. The New Jersey and New York delegations, Democrats and Republicans together, said no, and they had to take it out. We want that to happen here and happen now. So we are going to make this fight. Taking it out won't make a bad bill good, but it'll make it slightly less bad. And by the way, if they have to take it out, I think the whole bill goes down and all its bad things. So we are here to say no compromise. No taking away our state and local deductibility. No bill that hurts the middle class, hurts the poor, and gives almost every penny of its help to the wealthy and the powerful corporations. We will win this fight.
I'll tell you, one of the reasons we're going to win this fight, and we saw it during the fight to save health care, is because Democrats and progressives have a not-so-secret weapon. because our Democratic leader is Chuck Schumer, and he has led the way. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. Thank you. Go, yes, we want you to stay healthy, Chuck. Keep going. Our senators have really led the way. And Senator Kirsten Gillibrand understands this issue affects this entire state. She understands it would hurt upstate and downstate alike, and it would hurt, in fact, when it comes to state and local tax deductibility, 100 million Americans, middle class and working class people. And that's why she has been such a powerful leader in the fight to stop this tax plan. My honor to present Senator Kirsten Gillibrand.
So I think this has been said very well by everyone who's spoken, but this bill is a clear choice. It's a choice about who you fight for and what you value. I've never seen a more blatant attempt at a corporate welfare bill than this bill. They are literally taking money out of the hands of families in the middle class and putting it into the hands of the wealthiest millionaires and billionaires in society today. It is taking away important tax cuts for middle-class families and giving them to the most wealthy, effective, and rich corporations in all of America. It is unbelievable how unfair this tax bill is. I think this is something we all have to fight very hard to prevent. We have to be heard. We have to speak up. We have to fight every day. We were able to defeat Trump Care 3 times. That was the grassroots, that was regular people, that was all of you speaking up, speaking out, and being heard. We must do the same to defeat this tax plan. Make no mistake about it. Nidhi Velazquez said it exactly right. This is going to be an assault on Social Security, on Medicare and Medicaid. That is what this is about, because when they put $3 trillion of spending, do you know where they're going to recoup that money? They're going to start cutting all the things that we care about. That is what this is. It is an assault on the middle class. It is an assault on New Yorkers. This deduction, taking away state and local taxes, the deduction that we have is absolutely essential for middle-class families and small businesses throughout our state. You take that away, you are going to harm working families. It's just a choice. Be very clear about what the choice is for. It is a choice in favor of millionaires, billionaires, CEOs, and the most wealthy Americans. And it will harm every one of us. Do not give in. Do not give up. Do not take one moment out of your day to not speak out against this bill. It is going to harm the economy and it's going to harm all of us. Be heard.
Amen.
The mayor, sorry. I now like to introduce Congressman Joe Crowley, who has been a fighter for the middle class from the day he was born.
Amen. Amen. You don't need that.
No, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator. I want to thank Senator Gillibrand, but also Senator Schumer for being here today. Nidhi Velazquez, all my colleagues from the House representatives that are here representing New York City, our great city. And Mayor, thank you very much. And all the state and local officials who are here as well. Thank you, Mayor, for holding this press conference. It's important that New Yorkers understand what is actually happening right now in Washington. These walls that surround us have been through a great deal in the over 200 years that they've existed. They've seen some great times for New York, and they've seen some very, very difficult times. And back in early 1970, I think it was 1974, then President Gerald Ford notoriously said to New York City during its fiscal crisis, New York City, you could drop dead. If this Republican bill passes the House of Representatives, it is a message from the Republicans in Washington and some from New York State that New York City, New York State, you are screwed under this bill. Screw you. That's what this bill will do. It will hurt middle-class people. It will disrupt their lives. 25% of New Yorkers will see a tax increase of $1,200 if this bill is allowed to become law. Middle-class people, more than that, but we're talking about 25% of the middle class alone will see this, all to afford a tax break to special interest corporations in this country and the wealthiest among us. They will eliminate the estate tax that benefits 0.002%. 0.002% of the wealthiest in our country. They will drive our debt further into the hole by $1.5 trillion in order to give a tax break to the wealthiest in this country. And their tax havens as well.
You're getting a little help.
I'm getting help up here, right? What I really want to say is that I spent 4 days last week on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the tax writing committee. I saw my fellow New Yorkers vote for this bill. And Tom Reed, Tom Reed from the Southern Tier voted for this bill, despite the fact I called him out on it. And we know that Chris Collins from Buffalo said they have to pass this bill or their donors won't give them another penny.
Right.
We've heard the same thing from Senator Lindsey Graham. We know that this is all about passing something, regardless to what effect it will have on working people in this country. That's not the way in which our tax policy should be developed. It should be done in a fair and open process that benefits all Americans, not just the wealthiest, not just the chosen amongst us. It should be reflective of the values of our country, where we look out for the least amongst us, where we look out for those who are struggling to make it in this great nation of ours. That's what we should be doing in Washington, D.C., not looking out for the special interest, not passing a scam tax bill. This is a scam which is going on that will hurt our seniors, will hurt our middle class, it will hurt our students, it will hurt our veterans, and it will hurt New York. That's why this bill needs to be defeated. It's now, after this week, we suspect it probably will pass in the House of Representatives. But if we do our work, if we can get every New Yorker to vote no, if we can get every person from New Jersey to vote no, if we can get every member from California, another high state that has local, state, and property taxes, we can defeat this bill. But I know one thing. When the Senate takes this charge, we have two champions in New York State, in Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand. And we know that what happens in the state, in the House of Representatives, doesn't necessarily take place in the U.S. Senate. So we're going to continue this fight. No matter what happens this week, we will continue this fight because New Yorkers are depending on us. And with that, let me introduce to you a fighter, someone who is a senior member of the House Judiciary Committee, as well as one of the most senior members on the Transportation Committee, a fighter for all New Yorkers, Congressman Jerry Nadler.
Thank you very much. The Republican tax scam is a desperate, disgraceful attempt to line the pockets of the wealthiest Americans and corporations at the expense of middle class and low-income families. And why? For what? We are told the corporate and upper-income tax cuts will result in more investment and greater economic growth, which will yield more jobs and more revenue for the country and higher wages for the middle class. But that is bull. They have run this scam twice before. Ronald Reagan passed similar upper-class tax cuts and told us they would generate such economic growth that they would pay for themselves. George Bush pulled the same scheme. What happened? Reagan's cuts sent the national debt, accumulated from George Washington through Jimmy Carter, at $800 billion. In 12 years, it went from $800 billion to $4.3 trillion. It quintupled. Bush's tax cuts turned a projected $5.6 trillion surplus over 10 years into a $10.5 trillion debt in 8 years. They don't work. There is nothing in this bill to argue that this tax scam will have a different impact on the economy than Reagan's or Bush's. In fact, this scam is so skewed towards the rich and corporations that it could actually be worse. The bill would eliminate the alternative minimum tax. To put that in perspective, in 2005, Donald Trump paid $38 million in taxes. Of that, $31 million was the alternative minimum tax. Republicans want to eliminate the only tax we actually know that Donald Trump has ever paid. Republicans will repeal the estate tax, despite the fact that only the wealthiest 5,000 estates in the country pay any estate tax at all. And as was said before, that's 0.002%. Wealthy Americans would also see immediate personal benefits from corporate tax cuts and cuts in upper tax rates. But while billionaires and corporations enjoy all these benefits, the Republican bill hands working families a ticking time bomb. The bill wipes out nearly every single deduction and credit that helps working families make ends meet. The deduction of state and local income taxes, which hundreds of thousands of middle-income New Yorkers rely on each year. The medical expense deduction, which families use to pay for everything from fertility treatments to nursing home care. The student loan interest deduction for people who are saddled with student loan debt. The adoption tax credit, child care spending accounts, even deductions for teachers who buy school supplies for their classrooms, all to pay for tax breaks for billionaires and large corporations. If this bill is so blatantly harmful to working families, why are our Republican colleagues so crazy about it? Does it create jobs or give the economy a boost? No. Under this plan, the Republicans would tax companies less when they produce goods overseas than when they produce them in the United States. It is a giant incentive to large corporations to send jobs overseas. And if you ever doubted the GOP was doing this at the bidding of corporate donors, well, just the other day, Chairman Brady, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, tweaked an excise tax multinational corporations opposed and gave those corporations an additional $100 billion in revenue. No such change was made for working families. So this bill is going to greatly increase the tax burden on middle-income families, especially in states like New York, on low-income families, and it's going to greatly increase the deficit. And what's the predictable result? A couple of years from now, the Republicans will use the $1.7 trillion deficit this scam creates to say, oh my God, look at this massive deficit. We don't want to, but we have to make savage cuts to Social Security and to Medicare and to education and infrastructure because we just can't afford it. And that's what they're deliberately building in now. This is part of the old starve the beast scam. Deliberately give huge tax cuts to wealthy people and corporations, deliberately create huge deficits, and then say, my God, we can't afford education aid for kids. We can't afford Medicare. We can't afford Social Security. We can't afford health care. We can't afford education. This is a scam. It's a direct attack on the middle class and on people in the United States who depend on things like Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. We must defeat this with proper publicity and the hard work of all of our colleagues. We will defeat this. The American people, they are trying to rush this through. They are trying to rush this through so fast that people don't understand the implications before the votes are cast. We must make people understand this and hold our Republican colleagues accountable so that nobody who votes for this, nobody, can go home again without hanging their heads in shame. And now I have the great privilege of introducing my colleague in Congress, who's been a great fighter for the middle class, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for bringing us together and leading us so importantly on this really critical issue. And thank you, Nydia, who's been working on this for the past week and putting it together and getting us all here, and our two outstanding senators for their hard work and leadership, and all of my colleagues that are determined and committed to defeating this bill, and Joe Crowley, who's on the front line on the Ways and Means Committee, where this bill has to get out of, and he's throwing his body in front of it, trying to stop it. So if this House Republican tax bill passed, it will represent the biggest heist in New York City history. It is terrible for New York City. It's almost like a war against New York City because it will eliminate the deductibility of state and city taxes, our local taxes. And this bill robs New Yorkers of billions of dollars in order to pay for giveaways to large and wealthy businesses and corporations across this country. We New Yorkers will see double taxation. We will pay our taxes to the federal government, the city and state, and then they'll take away the deduction so that it's like a double tax on us. And we'll see lower wages, and we'll see our tax dollars going to Washington while not much is coming back. Already, we send more to Washington than any other state. We're what's called a donor state. We send over $58 billion to Washington, more money than what comes back to us, and this will absolutely probably double that amount. And we will see that New Yorkers alone will be paying more than $7.5 billion more in taxes every year and lose $2.6 billion per year in affordable housing finance. And then look at the deduction. It will raise the cost of housing because you can no longer deduct your mortgage payment. This is a double whammy to the heart of New York City. Let me tell you, I served in this body for 10 years as a member of the City Council. I worked in Washington, or rather in Albany, for 2 speakers and the Democratic leader in the state Senate. This is the most horrible economic impact on New York City that I have ever seen. It will be devastating to our economy. If we are going to preserve this city as we know it, we have to stop this. We have to stop this. Now, I was confident at first, but the other times we've stopped it, we've been in charge. We've had majorities in the House. Now we're facing a Republican president, a Republican Senate, a Republican House. It may get through the House. So it is really, really, we have to kill this like we killed health care. And that was killed by the people. We have to, so far, we've staved it so far. We're going to keep fighting. But if the people hadn't spoken up and fought it, it would never have been able to stop this like we have. This is adding insult to injury. You know, the main thing is this deductibility. This will absolutely kill our economy. But it makes higher education less affordable, makes medical expenses no longer deductible, will force teachers, and I'm a former teacher, we have to buy supplies because they don't have the supplies in the schools. Teachers will no longer be able to deduct the cost of their supplies in their classrooms. That's going to hurt education. And if that's not enough, the repeal also for the transit tax credit, which saves more than 450,000 city workers their commuting taxes or reduces us. This is a major tax increase on New Yorkers and middle-class families across the nation. This will also explode the national debt. How can you reduce taxes and increase the national debt? It's so wrong. It's so unfair. Personally, I think we should be rewarded as a city because we invest in our people. We tax our people more so that we can do more to help in innovation and education. Now we will no longer be able to deduct this. This is the most serious attack on our city I have ever seen in my life, and we've had some serious ones for the economic future of our city. And it lays the groundwork for Republicans to finally repeal the social programs that they never voted for in the first place. They never voted to create them. They try to repeal them every year. We stop them. But if you're so starved, then it's a threat to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. We cannot let this happen. This is a fight to preserve the future of New York City, and this delegation is ready for it, but we need the help of everybody in New York City to flip our Republicans and make them vote for the people, not the Republican Party. Yes. I am so honored to introduce an incredibly outstanding member of our delegation, Gregory Meeks. He is a senior member of the Financial Services Committee. He is the ranking member of the Europe and Eurasian Committee. He is a fighter for people, the middle class, for fairness and equality. He's a great guy. Just welcome him. Okay.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm so proud of our entire New York congressional delegation. You've heard the numbers and how devastating this tax bill would be for working families, for men and women throughout the United States of America. And we in this delegation, why it is tremendously important, we know better than most in America that we have a con man in the White House.
That's right. That's right. 25.
We know
That's right.
that this con man has conned Americans when he started talking about he was going to repeal, like nothing, like it was easy, the health care bill. But what happened when American people started to see what was in that health care bill and how they would lose their health care, they revolted. So it is our responsibility right now, as our Republican colleagues want to play a three-card Molly game on the people of the United States of America, we cannot allow that to happen.
That's right.
So what they do in this three-card Molly game is they tell the American people that this is a middle-class tax cut and we're going to give some $1,000. We're going to give some $1,500. It is a con.
That's right.
Because as my colleagues have told you, what they will have to pay for that $1,500 will be 5 times that. So it is our job as New Yorkers to tell the rest of the country, don't fall for the con, because we know the con man better than you. I close on this, and this is why New York State is important. As Joe Crowley talked about on the battlefield in the Ways and Means Committee. When we did the budget bill, people were not looking at the numbers. That bill passed by 2 votes. 2 votes. Had the 2 upstate Republicans voted no, that budget bill would not have passed.
That's right.
So the power of stopping this bill rests right here in the state of New York, who will be crippled by this bill. So let us recharge ourselves and get the message out to the rest of America. That's why, Nydia, your idea of having this press conference today is so important, so that we can get this message out across America. I have the distinct honor, privilege, and pleasure to introduce someone who is no stranger to this place called City Hall, who is been a fighter. I've known her when she was a fighter for workers at the Workers' Compensation Board, and she now serves on the esteemed and established Energy and Commerce Committee, where she is fighting for everyday people across this country, the Honorable, my sister, Yvette Clarke.
Let me start by thanking my esteemed colleague, the gentlelady from Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens, the Honorable Nydia Velazquez, who's really been a visionary in the resistance movement that we have led since 45 was installed. Let me also acknowledge all of my colleagues from the House of Representatives who are here standing shoulder to shoulder in this battle. Let me thank our U.S. senators who took the time from their busy schedules to be here with us. Let me also thank our mayor, who has not skipped a beat throughout this election season and really supporting the congressional delegation in the battle for decency and for morality. let me thank the other distinguished colleagues of the various bodies who are here with us, and let me thank organized labor. Because we know what is required right now is people power. We make no mistake being in the minority in the House of Representatives in believing that we are the end all to be all. It is the people of this city and this state that has fueled the resistance and has been victorious in saving health care thus far. We need that same energy focused on what I call the flim-flam GOP tax plan. Now, Greg Meeks already said, we know the con artist. My parents are from Jamaica. We call it the flim-flam Sim-Fi man. And indeed, what we see here is a willingness to let go of any moral standing to be able to siphon from the working people of our nation out of their pockets, out of their lives, the funds they need to live in dignity, to enhance the wealth of the wealthiest of this nation in perpetuity. In perpetuity. These folks will never, ever live to see their children, their great-grandchildren, or their great-great-grandchildren ever want. Yet they would take from the mouths of those who are struggling to keep a roof over their heads, to educate their children, to get quality health care, to live in dignity. That's what this bill is about. It's morality, folks. Let's not get caught up in all of the whereases, because they know that by confusing everyone, they can basically disenfranchise us. They can make us say, oh, well, we can never win. They can demoralize us, but this is not the time for that. This will resound for generations to come if we don't stand up, we don't speak out, we don't push back, we don't resist right now. So I want to encourage everyone. You have heard from my colleagues what this bill would do to devastate New York City, what it would do to devastate New York State, what it would do to devastate working people across this nation. There has been nothing proposed by this Congress that has not had a bullseye on the hearts of the American people, all at the expense of keeping wealthy people wealthy in perpetuity. What you need to know is that part of this scam is to make you believe that you will be getting some sort of tax relief. What you won't hear, that what they give you right now is simply temporary. What it is baked into the bill. And when our tax bill sunsets for the working class people of this nation, they will have embedded the permanent tax cuts that will benefit the wealthy for generations to come. We can't allow that to happen, can we? What is it called? It's the flim-flam. What is it called? The flim-flam. What is it called? Flim-flam. What is it called? Flim-flam. Let's not make them flim-flam us. Let's get on social media. Let's speak to as many people as we can. If you can make it to Washington, D.C., send out the word. We got to shut it down. Thank you. And now, that's right. And now I have the distinct honor and privilege.
They're afraid they're going to lose their donor money.
Absolutely correct. And donor money comes from extremely wealthy people. Let's not lose the thread of who is involved here. But there's a man who is here from our delegation who could break it on down even better than that. He's a leader in our Democratic caucus, working shoulder to shoulder with our Democratic caucus chairman. He is a great orator, someone that I'm proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with because our districts literally are adjoined. But beyond that, he has demonstrated his ability to pull people together, to charge forward, to send out a message that moves all Americans to their core. And I'm speaking of none other than the Honorable Congressman Hakeem Jeffries.
Thank you, Congresswoman Clark. And let me first just thank the fighting Congresswoman from the 7th Congressional District, Congresswoman Nydia Velazquez, for her tremendous leadership and bringing us all together. And it's an honor and a privilege to stand with all of my colleagues from the New York delegation and colleagues at the city and the state level, and of course our brothers and sisters from organized labor. Absolutely. The Republican tax plan is nothing more than a low-down, no-good, dirty Republican tax scam.
That's right.
The Republican tax scam will not help the middle class. It will hurt the middle class. It will raise taxes on working families and middle-class Americans. It will undermine Medicare, and it will explode the deficit. And this is all being done in order to cut taxes for the wealthy and for the well-off. The Republican tax plan will force our children and grandchildren to shoulder more than $1 trillion in additional debt, simply to give tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires and special interest corporations who don't need it and who don't deserve it. In fact, Donald Trump doesn't deserve a tax cut. Betsy DeVos doesn't deserve a tax cut. The Koch brothers don't deserve a tax cut. Working families and middle-class Americans are the ones who deserve a tax cut. Let's just be clear. And this bill, this tax scam, it won't help those in need, working families. It will hurt those in need. Eliminating the state and local tax deduction will hurt working families and middle-class Americans. Eliminating the medical expense deduction will hurt working families and middle-class Americans. Limiting the mortgage interest and property tax deduction will hurt working families and middle-class Americans. And that's why we're determined to stop it no matter what it takes. Now, you can ask the question, well, you don't have the House, you don't have the Senate, you don't have the presidency. How can you stop it? Let's just check the record. We stuck together, and we stopped the effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We stuck together, and we defeated Trump Care. We stuck together, and the Muslim ban has been declared unconstitutional. We stuck together, and Jeff Sessions was forced to recuse himself. We stuck together, and the Department of Justice was forced to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the fraud of the election back in 2016. We stuck together, and sanctuary cities are still alive and well across the United States of America. We stuck together, and Michael Flynn was forced to resign. We stuck together, and we sent Steve Bannon packing from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. If we stick together, we will defeat this Republican tax plan. We will not rest until it's dead and buried. I'm Hakeem Jeffries. I approve this message. And now it's my honor. It's my honor and my privilege to introduce a tremendous fighter for working families, a champion of organized labor, the distinguished president of RWDSU, none other than Stuart Applebaum.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Congresswoman. Today, I have a simple message for all those workers including many union members who sincerely believed that Donald Trump understood their economic anxieties and was going to fight for them. They should feel betrayed. We all should feel betrayed by Donald Trump's so-called tax reform plan and its versions in the House and the Senate. The facts are the facts. This is not a middle-class tax plan. This is not a tax reform plan. This is a redistribution of income from hard-working women and men to the wealthy. That is not what we were promised. This is a callous and indifferent betrayal of America's working people, and this is unacceptable. We need tax reform which benefits working families and middle-class families. We do not need more giveaways to corporations and billionaires. These Republican plans would give massive tax cuts to the wealthy on the backs of the working class, poor, and those who can least afford them. The people responsible for wasting trillions of dollars on tax giveaways to the rich, and who are now proposing in the budget for the coming year trillions of dollars of cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, education, and infrastructure. They are wrong. These Republican tax plans eliminate or reduce taxes to benefit the wealthy, the estate tax, the alternative minimum tax. They reduce the top individual tax rate. They reduce the corporate tax rate, while at the same time making working people pay more by eliminating the tax deduction for state and local taxes. Shame is right, by increasing the bottom tax bracket for those least able to afford it, and shame on them for that too. Working parents would no longer be able to exclude child care expenses from their income. Medical expenses, which are crippling working people, will no longer be able to get tax breaks in a market where health care costs are already high and Obamacare is under attack. Working families, working people, no matter who you may have voted for in the past, must oppose these tax plans. There is no alternative. We all must oppose them. Thank you. I now have the honor of introducing a friend, a good friend, who is a former teacher and is the Director of Community Outreach for the United Federation of Teachers, Anthony Harmon.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by first thanking our fearless Congresswoman who put together today's press conference. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Velazquez. Again, my name is Anthony Harmon, and I'm with the United Federation of Teachers. But prior to that, I taught high school for about 20 years. 20 years teaching high school. I will tell you that it bothers me that this tax plan calls for the elimination of a tax cut that teachers would get for purchasing supplies and materials that are much needed in our communities of low income, but yet at the same time gives a tax cut to the most rich in our country. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. I will tell you that surveys say that on average, teachers spend about $600 on supplies. Teachers who go out and buy pencils, and not only pencils, but notebooks for kids who come to school not prepared, for whatever the reason, not prepared. I will tell you that my brothers and sisters who are teachers, that number, and particularly in low-income areas, far exceed a $600 average. I will tell you that when I taught, I spent upwards of $1,500 a year, sometimes as much as $2,000 a year, just to make sure that my students had what they needed to make the playing field level. I will tell you that it is a shame what they're trying to do. I will tell you that it's a shame what they're trying to do. Dr. King once said that our lives begin to end the moment that we keep silent about the things that matter. Beloved, this matters. This matters. And I ask that you stand with us, and I'm proud to say that we are joining, that we are a part of this coalition with our elected officials and our brothers and sisters from the labor movement, because together in numbers there's strength, in numbers there is strength, and we are the people. Everybody had a teacher. It's my distinct honor to introduce to you a sister from the labor movement. I'm so proud that if there's a fight that she joins with us, Stella Velazquez, who's the Executive Vice President from 1199.
Buenas tardes, familia. Good afternoon. There is a bad hombre in the White House. A bad hombre who promised during his campaign he was going to drain the Washington swamp. But what he's doing is draining the pockets of working class and middle class America with the tax bill. These tax bills represent a Thanksgiving gift, a Christmas gift, a Three Kings Day gift for the 1% in the country, and we must stop them. We show them when they try to impose on us an anti-people so-called health care bill. And we show them that when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. We're gonna continue showing them when they try to push the Muslim ban. We show them that when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. And we're gonna continue showing the bad hombre in the White House that we're going to unite. I call on all New Yorkers from Watertown to Montauk in Long Island. This is not about partisan line. This is not about Democrat and Republican. This is about working people, middle-class people, and human rights for all of New Yorkers. We must stop this bill, and we will. We must stop this bill, and we will. For my fellow 1199ers and all of labor in this city, training and education programs that we have struggled for decades to win under attack. Rights that we have won for child care benefits are under attack. And we have to come together. We have to build a coalition that delivers one message to Washington. And when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. And we are going to win. Thank you very much. And now I have the distinct honor and pleasure to invite to the podium a fellow trade unionist, Stephen Yearwood, from 32 BJ. Stephen? Yeah. 32? BJ. 32?
BJ. Hey, good day, brothers and sisters. As you know, my name is Stephen Yearwood, I have been a member of 32BJ for 20 years, and I'm a handyman at a residential building in Brooklyn. Now, all these tax cuts the Republicans are proposing for the rich will end up cutting services that working people like me need. Like me, I need that. Medicare, Medicaid. Now, being a union member with good benefits means that I don't have to worry about my health care. That's for right now. But not everybody got the same benefits. My mother, she's 93 years old. She's bedridden, and she's in constant care. She needs that, and she relies on Medicare to cover those costs. Sometimes it's very difficult to get the care she really needs. But if there are cuts to the Medicare, it will be almost impossible for her to get the care that she needs, and that is troublesome. That is why this tax plan frightens me. It should frighten all of us very, very much. That is why we need to fight back. I must just to say, when we fight, we win. We can't let the Republicans cut the benefits of older folks who work their whole life for that. We can't let them hurt working families who want a better life. We have to fight this proposition, that tax plan, every day. And I'm proud to stand here with all the elected officials who would fight with us. We have to keep up the fight and push all members of Congress to stand with us in this fight. As we say, when we fight, we win. As the Spanish would say, si se puede. Si se puede. Thank you. And I have the privilege to introduce Ms. Wendy Viola. She's going to discuss her situation. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Wendy Viola. I'm a member of Indivisible Nation BK and a recent PhD. Embedded in this House tax plan is a stipulation that would make doctoral students responsible for paying income taxes on their tuition remissions. Tuition remissions are chunks of money that universities pay to themselves in the names of graduate students to enable graduate students to attend university. The graduate students never actually see this money. It's paid by the university to themselves. Had I been a student under this tax plan, I would have been responsible for paying $2,700 in income tax every year out of my annual pre-tax income of $13,000. That just wouldn't have worked. And I can guarantee you that I wouldn't be working at a youth-serving nonprofit as I am now. I wouldn't be teaching at a community college if I'd had to take out additional student loans to cover the cost of my taxes. So in 10, 15 years, when we're wondering why the United States has continued to slide behind other countries in terms of innovation and education, we'll think back to this moment when we decided it was more important to have graduate students pay an extra couple $1,000s in taxes every year than to enable them to innovate in the name of this country, to contribute to a growing body of real facts, and to teach the next generation of leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Viola. It is so important that we put a human face into those numbers. This is not about cutting taxes, but what it means for the future and the next generation of leaders. They are predicating that this tax cut or this tax scam will produce economic growth of 6%. It's not going to happen. It's going to increase the income of working families. It's not going to happen. So it is important that the state of New York help us. And the governor has been good at denouncing Republicans in upstate New York. And I just would like to invite my colleagues from the state assembly who have been here waiting so diligently, Assemblyman David Reppen and Assemblywoman Joanne Simon, who is my Assemblywoman from Brooklyn. Please say a few words.
Okay. Just about everything has been said. The only problem is they're not listening yet. So, again, I know we're listening, but they're not listening in Washington, and we have to stand together. I'm old enough to remember when Republicans and Democrats came together, when Ronald Reagan proposed a similar plan, and we all defeated it with Republicans and Democrats. So when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Thank you. Assemblymember Joanne Simon.
Hi, I'm Assemblymember Joanne Simon from Brooklyn. And I want to say one thing to everybody. If you look at
this tax plan, these tax benefits go to the top 0.002%. That means that this proposal hurts 99.8% of Americans. That's everybody here. I'm guessing that the Mercers aren't here and the Kochs aren't here today. It hurts everybody, and it will hurt the state of New York. If they kill Medicaid, it will be a $6 billion hole in the state budget. Eliminating the state and local taxes will devastate New York's economy. So this is not something that is in any way academic. It is going to affect us at every level. And I don't want to go back to Albany in January and have to close a $6 or $10 or $12 billion hole in the state's budget. I want to stand up with you and fight back. When we stand together, we fight back. Thank you.
And let's hear from Council Member Margaret Chin.
Well, thank you to our Congresswoman Nydia Velazquez, fighting for us in Washington with our delegation. But it's not enough. We have to make sure that our community gets the truth. How dare they push a tax plan that is so blatantly robbing from the poor and giving to the rich? That is so unacceptable, and we're gonna fight back, and we're gonna win. So, si se puede. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It means so much to us that you were all came out and that we're standing here united with one voice to denounce this immoral plan that's robbed from our children's future and our parents who have worked so hard to make this country great. So now we have marching orders, and that is to call every Republican in upstate New York and say, you will pay a price, a political price, if you vote for this outrageous bill. God bless you. Thank you so much. And thank you.